Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome to Privilege Stacking Episode 2. So, in this episode, I'm going to talk about the different types of privileges and the benefits of those privileges. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I want you guys to be able to decide what types of privileges you feel will benefit you most when it comes to living the soft life. So, if you're a part of my Patreon, you've probably heard me talk about the concept of the soft life. And what that really means is just living a life where you are facing minimal stress, where you're not living in a state of struggle. That could mean struggling financially, it could mean struggling emotionally or struggling with bad relationships and friendships. So the goal of this series and the goal of this whole channel is really to get all of us in a safe space so that we can thrive in every other area. So, first, I want to look up the definition of the word privilege. It says that privilege is a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group. So, having special rights or special access to certain things, that's a form of privilege. So, a lot of people who like to talk about pretty privilege, what they're really saying is that because of your beauty, you're able to gain special access. So maybe you get recruited for modeling jobs, or maybe you have more dating options, or your visibility is higher. So, for example, let's say you're pretty and you post a lot on Instagram and all those social media platforms. You have a visibility advantage because people may give your account more attention. So, because of that increased visibility, now you can use that to sell something, you can use that to create something. I actually think of the Kardashians. I think they're a great example of this. They all started off, well, in my opinion, they started off as not looking as good, or in their opinion, they didn't feel like they looked good. So what they did was they used their wealth privilege to purchase the pretty privilege. And then they used that increased visibility to create businesses or, kind of sell stuff and make their wealth and fame and popularity go up even more. So I think the first question you would want to ask yourself is, what are my life goals? So if money didn't exist, if men didn't exist, if you weren't male centered or spending your life chasing around a man, what would you be doing with your time? Would you be helping others? Would you be starting a business? Would you start a cute coffee shop? Or maybe you would create a yoga studio? I want you to start thinking about the things that you would do if you didn't have any distractions, or like if money wasn't a factor and you could basically spend your time doing whatever you wanted. If you could create like a heaven on earth for yourself, what would that be? Would it be getting paid to be able to do your makeup, getting paid to be able to do hair? Would it be creating events, doing event planning? Those things are important to think about because it's going to help you to create a path for yourself so that you can kind of navigate to get there. Because I do feel like a lot of the femininity content creators that you see here on YouTube, a lot of them do talk about leveling up, but they kind of seem to have the mindset that you can only level up if a man helps you do it. Like, if you don't have a guy, then suddenly you're going to be leveled down and suddenly you're going to be just like at the bottom and your life is going to be more of a struggle without a guy in it. So I don't really care for those types of teachings because I feel like it is still teaching women to be kind of desperate and male centered, constantly trying to chase after some rich guy or trying to constantly snag him or fight over him or compete over him or something. And we're not doing that energy over here because we understand our own inherent worth and value. But starting with the benefits of something like pretty privilege, because that seems to be a popular one on here, some of the privileges you would get are the halo effect. So, the halo effect means that people tend to associate other positive qualities with a person who looks healthy and they look really nice. But remember, pretty privilege only works if you are dealing with non jealous people or you're dealing with someone who like wants you or wants to date you or kind of like wants access to you. So if a person is jealous of you, whether they're a man or a woman, this is going to have the opposite effect. You're actually going to have disadvantages. And I think a lot of you guys have experienced that where people go out of their way to try to sabotage you because they know that you have pretty privilege. But if you're in a non jealous environment, some of the privileges that you can attain are things like the halo effect, where people associate positive qualities with you. You are able to violate certain norms, and people do not, they don't look down on it as much or they don't view it as weird. I actually love using that privilege. I love violating norms. I love talking about controversial things. That's really the premise of this entire channel. Also, your quality of life, I would argue that your quality of life could be better because if you already look good, you're dealing with less insecurities about your looks. So you are going to naturally be more confident in that area. You're not going to spend all of your time worrying about, oh my God, I'm so fat. Oh my God, my hair is so dry. Oh wow, my lips are crusty. Oh, my teeth are messed up. My nose is messed up. My eyes are messed up. You're not thinking all of those thoughts. So you do have mental clarity when it comes to that. So you can spend all of that mental energy working on other parts of your life. So, another benefit of pretty privilege is if you do choose to have kids, your kids are going to more than likely inherit at least some of your pretty privilege or at least some of your physical qualities. So that's an advantage of pretty privilege. I do believe that beauty is a form of social power. I've talked about that on this channel before. Make sure you go back and watch those videos. That is why pretty privilege is important to a lot of people because a lot of people feel powerless. And, I kind of agree. If you are very male centered to the point where you literally are just codependent and like cannot function as an adult, without a guy, then yeah, you are going to feel powerless if you are not viewed as attractive in the male gaze. And by the way, like I said, this is why I teach decentering men because then you will not feel that sense of powerlessness. A man will never be able to take away your personal power. But for those of you who are interested in pursuing pretty privilege, I would say that it is worth it, especially if you want visibility. So let's say you want to start a business, or maybe you want to be a singer, a dancer, a makeup artist, a fashion designer. Looking pretty and representing your brand and stuff, that can be a huge thing that can help you out. So another thing that pretty privilege can help you with is it can help open doors for you. So let's say you want to go to a job interview or you want to get into a special program or something like that. I do believe that looking more professional and looking more put together and kind of wearing your power suit and stuff like that, I do think that that helps to provide a good impression. I would say that pretty privilege gives you the advantage of making a good first impression. So you get to decide, okay, where do I want to make these good impressions and where do I want to have this sense of social power? I've noticed that a lot of girls in the pretty privilege sector, they tend to either go after relationships or they go after some sort of entrepreneurship where it requires a lot of visibility. So I've seen women start their own like real estate companies and stuff because that's still a part of being visible because you're the one who is showing the houses or you're the one who is supposed to be promoting a certain lifestyle. I've seen a lot of women use their privilege to go into being workout coaches or personal trainers and stuff. So, those are just a few of the advantages that you can have. Also, one of the dark femininity advantages you have is you can flex that shit. If you ever feel the need to, like let's say somebody's being rude and disrespectful to you or they're being jealous, guess what? You can flip your hair in their face and walk away if necessary. I mean, I teach dark femininity on this channel, so yes, sometimes you do want to flex on someone or you want to, be more visible. And if that's the case, then, I'm not judging you because I do understand what it's like to have people naturally just trying to come at you because they are threatened by you. So I do think that your privilege can be a way to flip that on its head because all you have to do is go to a different environment and then you can, get more opportunities all over again. It kind of reminds me of how when I was in college, there were some girls that were like jealous or whatever. So they would purposely try to not tell us about certain opportunities, like for a modeling thing or for some dance team or whatever. But then what they didn't realize was that, okay, even if I'm not a part of this opportunity, I can still go somewhere else and get another opportunity. That's the advantage. It's that if your privilege doesn't work in one space, it will always work in another space. And so that's why I'm talking about that on this channel. Another privilege you can easily use to your advantage is social climbing and the benefits of this. By the way, this is kind of a term that I like. I don't want to say I made it up, but it's the best way I can think of it. Social climbing, when I use that term on this channel, what I'm really saying is knowing how to strategically be in the right place at the right time or make friends with the right people, knowing how to network, knowing what environments to be in and what environments to stay away from. So, for example, if I want to work in finance, the first thing I would do is try to find someone that I know of or find an acquaintance or someone who works in finance so I can ask them questions. I would try to maybe go to events that have to deal with finance or join some sort of LinkedIn and then try to like connect with finance people. Maybe I would join a Facebook group or something that talks about finance. That's what I'm talking about when I mention the concept of social climbing. It's really about trying to get into almost like a think tank that has to do with brainstorming so you can get to where you need to go. That's really what this whole channel is, by the way. This whole community is supposed to be kind of like a think tank where we all get to describe our experiences. We get to talk about the pros and cons that come with being who we are. And we also get to strategize and talk about leveling up. And by the way, if you want to know more info about these concepts, definitely join the Patreon. It is quickly growing. And so on there, I post about every day, almost every day on there. So if you are like an Exoticals United stan, you should totally be in the Patreon. Another privilege that you can use to your advantage that I recently talked about is having a fluid identity. This is probably one of the strongest privileges, in my opinion, out of all of them, because I feel like pretty privilege is pretty easily attainable. You can just put on some makeup, you could lose some weight, you can buy a wig, you can put on some contacts. That's pretty easy and very attainable for most people. But I feel like a fluid identity, you could have money and screw it all up. I mean, we've seen this happen with like NBA players and people who are just very like ghetto, for lack of better words, or they have a very toxic mindset and maybe they come from a toxic culture. And so their whole entire identity, they don't know how to switch it, no matter how much money they have, no matter how much social climbing they've been able to do. They're not able to operate in that new space in their life because they have not developed a fluid identity. So this is probably the top privilege that I think everyone should be pursuing, whether you're monoracial or not, because the fluid identity is what's going to allow you to not have that imposter syndrome. You are less likely to sabotage yourself if you have a fluid identity because you won't walk into a room full of like rich people and feel threatened. You won't walk into a room full of people who don't look like you and feel an inferiority complex. I have seen people who have a non-fluid identity, I've seen their lives destroyed so many times to where these are the type of people where you could literally hand them $1 billion and they would find a way to squander it. It actually reminds me of the people who win the lottery and within a couple of years all of that money is gone. It's because they did not have the fluid identity that was required to maintain wealth. They didn't have a wealthy identity. They didn't have a rich girl identity. Their identity was based on being from a trailer background or being from, whatever background they came from that had toxic money habits. And so even though they had manifested the money in real life, their mindset caused them to screw it all up. So having a fluid identity is extremely important. And it's not only important when it comes to dealing with people of other cultures and ethnicities, but fluid identity really just means you know how to operate in new spaces. So, yes, it could be like people of a different ethnicity. It could be operating in a new socioeconomic class. It could be knowing how to move from one city to another and like succeed. Because I've seen some people where they're like, oh, I can't move out of my hometown because, if you go to XYZ city, they're all racist or they're all rich and snobby and, I won't fit in there. So they automatically assume, without having ever lived in whatever the city is, they assume that they are going to fail. So, in my opinion, that's actually a very negative mindset to have because no matter what in life, you are never going to be able to control every single circumstance that you're in. So yeah, sometimes you will be in a circumstance where from the outside, it looks like you don't fit in. From the outside, it may look like you are destined to fail. Or from the outside, it may look like you are not as privileged as the other people. But having a fluid identity helps you to be flexible enough to switch it up if you need to know how to operate in those spaces without automatically assuming the worst. Because I think that those people that assume the worst or those people that kind of panic and they don't know how to respond to their new environment, that's how you get people who win millions of dollars and they squander it all because they don't know that, oh, wait a minute, all of these family members who are coming out of the woodworks and asking for my money, oh, wait, no, I can't just give away everything. Oh, wait, I can't just buy 25 different cars. So these are people who they didn't educate themselves about the new spaces they're going to be navigating in. And so their lack of education caused their failure and their lack of an ability to socialize in that new neighborhood or that new environment and stuff. It causes their failure. I've also seen this with business owners who are not knowledgeable about how to run a business and stuff. They don't have that fluid identity when it comes to being an entrepreneur. They still have that same hood mindset. And so once they get into the business world, they don't know how to operate a business. They don't know how to operate with business people. They don't know how to like do the taxes and deal with the government or file all the paperwork they need to file. So this is how you see people go from millionaire entrepreneurs to suddenly they are in jail for money laundering, or suddenly their whole entire business gets shut down, or they owe the IRS all of this money. It's because they didn't have the fluid identity when it came to socioeconomic status. So they were still using that hood booger mindset that they had when they were a teenager, and they were carrying that over into a space where it doesn't apply. Like, the types of behaviors that help you to thrive in one environment, they are not always going to be the same types of behaviors that will help you to thrive in another environment. Those are some of the thoughts that I have on privilege stacking and the benefits of certain privileges. I'm going to do a lot more episodes to this series, so stay tuned, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.